This is the Universal Wrestling Podcast. Inside the ring, outside the ring, it's all here.
We're talking about the greatest sport of all, professional wrestling.
Now here's your host,
the cream of the crop,
Nick Dieterdy.
Come on.
Welcome back to the Universal Wrestling Podcast. Welcome back, Chris Dunn. Chris, how the hell are you?
Doing well. Nick, thanks again for letting me come on the podcast with guests to promote the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. We're in the last week of donations, and currently now, please go to my Twitter and you'll see an auction item for a AEW meet and greet if you live in the Los Angeles area, when they are at the Forum in early June, where you can meet Chris Jericho, Adam Cole, the Young Bucks, Justin Roberts, a bunch of other people at AEW, and have great seats and a lovely evening. So yeah, please donate if you can.
Absolutely. And Matt McCarthy is here. How are you, sir? Welcome to the program. Thanks for coming on.
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Again, Chris said it off the top, we are trying to push this fundraiser, this awareness for such a great cause. So we do appreciate you coming on, to help make awareness for such an amazing cause. So cheers to you, my friend. Thank you.
Hey, cheers to me.
There we go.
Matt, I don't know if you remember this, but I think, and I kind of mentioned this on Facebook a little bit before. I think we both worked at WWE like in 2009 or 10. Do you remember doing a New York Television Festival pilot called Homeschooled with the sidecar guys, Justin Tyler, Alden Ford, Matt Fisher?
Yes.
So I was a producer on that. I was
okay.
Producing with Justin and Alden, and it was like we were all really excited to get you. I wrote a pilot recently where I used the term clown shoe, and like one of those, and Justin Tyler read it over. And he was so excited to see it, and I completely forgot, because in your scene you call one of them clown shoes, and he was like thought about how that was like such an awesome improv you had, and I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure he used that because of Jericho's. And it was just like a memory that kind of like tied into wrestling in a fun way, where using that term just really kind of stood out for the people who worked on that pilot over a decade ago.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, I remember that. I remember I had like a big set of headphones that like I sat down and vanished, and the sound guy had the exact same headphones, and I was like, I don't know what happened to my headphones, and I think because he wound up giving me his, and I knew that they weren't my headphones, but my headphones vanished, and then he was really upset because I don't know if he thought I was trying to scam him out of headphones.
Yeah.
Or I mean, the long and short of it was, is somebody swiped the headphones, or I was like, I don't know, did somebody put them in your bag, or I don't know. This is something I haven't thought about in 10 years, and I'm trying to piece together.
If there's one thing I am that I think our mutual friends at WWE would tell you is topical. So
that's honestly most of what I remember. I remember there being other men in the scene, and there may have also have been women, and then there were headphones. That's the best I can recall.
We tried to do the headphone spinoff, but it just did not work out.
Wow. So did that pilot get picked up?
Sure didn't.
Damn it.
But it's also like, we were such big fans of you as a stand-up, and like it was so cool to have you in that. And then, as a like fan of yours, I was really excited when I saw that you were working for WWE as a writer. And then when I got to WWE, you were a person who was consistently talked about throughout my 5 years there as like a living legend.
When were you there again?
I got there 2016 in August and left right around Mania in 2021.
Okay.
So
then you were there when I was like consulting.
Yeah, so we had a phone call with Tom Casiello and Matt Weir and somebody else because there was the idea that WWE could do these Slammies as well as the Oscars could do the Oscars.
Oh my God.
And everything was pitched. It was in Toronto. Drake was floated as a host by somebody who will go unnamed. We talked about having a big cast musical number because of that one song he sang at NXT. Then the budget came in and the project surprisingly did not move forward.
Right.
Nice.
You know, it's funny. This in 2011, this same scenario came up again of having Todd Pettengill
Nice.
come back and like reprise, like basically do. We were comparing it to that Steve Martin SNL monologue where he like dances through the whole studio.
Oh yeah, like backstage.
Right, and it would be Pettengill doing it like through the whole arena.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
it would have been amazing.
Yeah,
and like there's only like there's not a lot of people who can pull that off, but like Pettengill could have pulled that off, you know. And that was one of those things that's when Kevin Eck was there. And I remember specifically him and I talking about it because like we definitely knew that SNL episode. And then when Brian Gewirtz was our boss at the time, he came back into the room and we pitched him the idea, and the look on his face was just like, yeah, that's not that's not gonna happen. We're not.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not even bothered bringing it to Vince.
There is like definitely a point where I don't know if you felt this like when you're there, where it's like you have all this creativity and then like you kind of understand the production element of it and like what is and is not possible to do day of, where like I always like, you know, like you kind of see that. I think you were there like when The Rock was back and he did like, he came out of the car and like walked around, made fun of Miz, but like you know, when you pitch that for current talent, like I think in my time there, we only did for Elias. Sometimes like the production elements like just make it so hard to do cool stuff there.
Yeah. Now, why is that? Is it just the budget, like you guys said, and maybe it just doesn't seem like it would be pulled off on, you know, national television?
I mean, it depends. It depends on, everything is situational.
Yeah.
It also depends on who's pitching the idea. Because like if, you know, like just for example, throwing out a name, Triple H came up with the Elimination Chamber. That is a extremely expensive contraption, you know.
You can also like run it in so many arenas because it's so insanely
right. And like, but like I remember John Laurinaitis was the GM at the time, and he had this white suit, and this was like Vince's baby. Was oh God, someday we're gonna get a payoff on this white suit. And so the day finally came where a babyface was going to destroy this legendary white suit coat that so finally it comes down to Brodus Clay,
as it always does.
Yeah, this was when, you know, Vince was on the edge of we're spending a lot of money on Brodus's push, because like it was a whole the giant disco ball and stuff. It was like I don't think Brodus realized how expensive his act was, but he was getting a big push. And this was towards the end of Vince was at the end of the rope with him, and we had to do a backstage where basically Brodus Clay trashes Laurinaitis' office and rips up the suit coat. And this was something that it's like, you know, we're spending a lot of money on just him trashing all the stuff, and then he rips up this coat. And then Vince hated the backstage. He said that the acting was terrible. And then it never aired. And then there was just the white suit coat vanished. So it was like, that's like one of those things, like if I was to pitch this, you know, it would just be like, we can't pay for this. We'd have to buy a couch. We'd have to buy a this. I remember one time there was a backstage. We specifically told Big Show, don't touch the TV monitor. And instead he punched it and it smashed into 1,000 pieces. And I remember Teddy Long was standing next to me and he goes, oh my God, they told him not to touch the gimmick. And then he punches the gimmick.
That's great.
So I don't know. It was if it was Vince's idea, spare no expense. If it was somebody else. I mean, there was one time Vince sent the plane to go pick up Khali because Vince wanted him to be in a battle royal, and Khali was like at home.
Yeah.
Send the plane.
It was in my time there, it was like to show you where I was at. Like I started doing like all the offsites for like my last year and a half there, and like I learned a lot about the budgets on it, doing like the Profits Viking Raiders thing. So God. I was doing a lot of the 24/7 stuff, and like sometimes when you're there, you just like, I don't know if you agree with this, like if you just give the man what he wants, you have like freedom to do whatever with it. Like if there's like one thing he wants and you give it to him, he's happy. So I pitched, I knew he wanted to do an offsite during the pandemic era at the beach. So I pitched a 24/7 offsite there. Obviously, Tozawa was eaten by a shark. Not my idea.
Right. That's right.
But, it's like when you kind of get an idea that's like out there like that, that's like so insane, it like kind of gives you like a certain level of freedom. So I was like, oh, well, like we can do a funeral for Tozawa, where he like wins the title back and he's like staged his death. So like I spent about 3 days calling funeral parlors around Orlando, looking for a casket. And I got, as our friend Michael Kirschman will make fun of me about, I got a day rate on a casket. I got $250 day of. It's like working. So I wrote out a whole 4-part thread. And like part of it, you like realize that like Tozawa had like a secret affair with Billy Kay, who like we had come in for it. Or with having coming in for it, and like it would be really emotional, and we had like all this stuff planned, and like I was even using Titus in it, which is always like a because of Titus Worldwide. And lo and behold, because of the Randy Orton Rainbow Six sniper killings that he was doing to everyone backstage, we had to cancel it kind of because it was going to be like too much on production to have both. So like finding that, not being able to do that funeral is like one of those ideas, as dumb as it sounds, is like one which I wish we could have nailed.
Well, God, I mean, the stuff of, I was not there for this, but it was the stuff of legend, the footage that they shot for Vince McMahon's funeral that was supposed to air, the day, the weekend the Benoit tragedy went down. And specifically, they said that Michael Hayes's performance of like wailing over Vince's casket, they were like, it's a crime that can never be seen.
Well, you also know, like, and I don't want to say anything too offensive, but like that. Michael that was a real performance. So for hopefully 15 years of job security. So it was like, that was his audition tape for like Julia.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes sense. What about you, Matt? Do you have any wishes, any regrets that maybe you wanted to do like a storyline or just anything?
I mean, it's funny at the time. I mean, two things. One, when I wasn't there, but like, every so often I would send a pitch to like Kirschenbaum or somebody. I would just be like, why is Billy Kay? You mentioned Billy Kay, and I was like, why is she wrestling? My pitch was she still could be Bobby the Brain Heenan.
I remember Kurt bringing this up to the group.
Good. Yeah.
Kurt, your ideas.
And I wasn't even working there at the time. I was just like sending a text like, this is what would be great.
Yeah.
Because she's so funny.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And you know, it's like I don't need to, it's just I don't know, it's one of these, I don't know who it is. It feels like a Vince thing or somebody. It's like there's always like if somebody can work like a I can't think of his name. He used to do the PowerPoint presentations.
Oh, Drew Gulak.
If somebody can work, Vince wants them to be a comedian.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody's a comedian, Vince wants them to go into the ring and work. Like Selena Vega and Almost were like the greatest act together.
Yeah.
Or like Lana and Rusev were the greatest act together. And so Vince is like, well, it would be like if he was booking Miss Elizabeth to like wrestle like Moolah or goddamn, you know, Sherry Martel. It's just like no one. What are you doing?
Yeah. So
that was my thing. It was with Billie Kay. I was like, she should have a stable of heels and just like do that Bobby Heenan thing of just talk so much shit.
Yeah.
And then have nothing to back it up except for these monsters like that this wall of, you know, humanity that she hides behind.
Yeah, she's like she is good in every segment where
she's so funny.
It felt like her floor, like she could have easily been R-Truth as like her floor at the company. She could like when I was working on the pay-per-views in my last like year or so there, like I always tried to find an excuse to have her and Truth on the show because they always made the shows better.
Yeah. Yeah, Ron was one of the people that I loved working with because it was always going to be either the way I pictured it or better.
Yeah,
you know?
100%.
Kane was the same way. You know, I think his politics are shit, but like he's a guy that you could hand him a script, he wouldn't complain, he wouldn't be like, I don't, because there's plenty of guys that be like, what do I have to do that? He would go off wherever, memorize it, and do it exactly the way that you had envisioned it, or that Vince was dictating it be done, or be better, you know? Yeah. But the thing that I was like, it's funny, I didn't know how to pitch it. And this is back in like early 2012. But I wanted to do something. I'm fascinated by wrestling history. And I was reading about like the Gold Dust Trio, you know, like and I can't even think who that is off the top of my head. It's Sandow, Strangler Lewis, and I think Toots Mondt. And these were the guys that really changed wrestling from like literally matches taking a few hours to like standing up, like shooting into the rope, running, you know, slam bang Western style wrestling.
Yeah.
And I thought that would be a great name for a group. Call it the Gold Dust Trio. Have Dustin in it as Goldust. You know, he was a producer at the time. And then had I known more about the talent, I don't know if the Vaudevillains were already in FCW or when they showed up, but like those were the guys I was picturing in my mind. Because what I wanted was a wrestler like who was the guy that did the strongman gimmick with the mustache?
Simon,
yeah.
Simon and Aiden, I guess.
Yeah.
What in my mind we would have painted him, because you already have Goldust there.
Yeah.
So you've got a guy painted up. If we had someone who's the mouthpiece, who's kind of like the Barker, the you know, the PT Barnum, you know, old timey, you know, I'll tell you one thing, kid, 23 skidoo, that whole thing.
Yep.
And then the strong man, but paint him gray. So even in the arena, the man looks like he's either black and white or sepia in real life.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't know how to articulate this. And like you said, this feels like it's so out of left field.
Yeah.
And And then they actually wound up with the two guys that would have been perfect for the deal. So I was just like, damn, man,
Yeah.
maybe I should have spoken up. The only other thing that really killed me was I had the idea of like wanting to do a throwback, like as though you had found a videotape of old wrestling and then you just put it in and it's just like random territory promos and like segments and all this stuff. Basically what wound up, you know, the idea of Southpaw wrestling, or what
Oh,
was it?
yes,
That's what it
yes.
was called,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So much, it was so like, it was so much my idea that I was like, did I write that down? I started going through old emails. I was like, did I like pitch this to someone? Did I mention this to someone?
Yeah.
Because I couldn't believe it. Because even at that point I was talking to a couple other like comedy writers and I was like, maybe we can like pitch this to like Adult Swim or somebody or something. But I mean, those are the things.
Yeah,
that,
I'm sure I would not be shocked if you like knowing how that goes. I would not be shocked if somebody found a piece of paper.
I know, who knows?
Yeah.
I was like, I can't think if I ever even said it out loud.
Yeah.
One thing I pitched.
Oh, sorry.
The one thing I pitched really early on was I think it was leading up to Mania 28. And we were going to do a rock concert, and Bryan wanted songs and like lyric, you know, parodies for Dwayne to sing. And a couple of the guys who are still there were in the room, and we'll back this up. And I go, well, if you listen to John Cena's theme song, this is like late 2011, maybe like coming into early 2012. I was like, if you listen to his theme song, if you sing along with the horns, you can go, John Cena sucks. John Cena sucks. And everyone was like, okay, yeah, maybe. I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah.
And then cut to 2 or 3 years later, and the crowd is actually doing it.
Yep. It's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
I specifically remember Kevin Eck. So I think Steve Oppenheim too were like, this was McCarthy's pitch.
Yeah. That's great. Did you write that one down?
I said it out loud. I said it to the room. I definitely, yeah. But it's somehow
that's funny.
The crowd in London or somewhere. The night after
I think
Mania.
it was London too.
Yeah, they go nuts.
Yeah. One thing though, that I think, like, going back to our brief Slammies call for the one time we worked together at WWE, the one thing that I kind of found out at that call was like you were informed on the call that the bar was being put together, and through that I found out that you were the guy behind the Daniel Kane therapy vignettes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And just like, how did that all come together for you? Like, was that your pitch? Were you given the assignment? Like,
yeah, no, that was an assignment. That was because that was an idea. The original idea fell apart, but then we just kept going with the skeleton of the idea. And what I mean by that was I don't know what the end game was going to be, but Raw 1000, Charlie Sheen was the social media ambassador, which means he was on, you know, FaceTime or Skype, and he would chime in every so often from his house in LA. And I drew the short straw of like, Vince, we got to have a writer there in Charlie Sheen's house with him. and I got volunteered for the job. And so I was with Charlie Sheen in his house, you know, kind of like explaining to him who everybody is and what's going on. And, you know, and I even said to him, I was like, because the two things out of that afternoon were, one, he said to me, he goes, these people know that it's fake, right?
Oh, God.
You know, he's like reacting to the crowd cheering. And I go, well, Charlie, it's no different than crying during a movie.
Yep.
And he's like, all right, I could see that. And it he was like, yeah, just being caught up in it. The other thing I was like, you remember when Andy Kaufman went on David Letterman and that wrestler slapped the shit out of him? He goes, yeah. I go, that's one of the guys you're about to talk to, Jerry Lawler. And he was like, wow. So that was pretty
that's cool.
So, but at the time he's promoting his new show, Anger Management. So the idea was he's going to say a few things about Bryan Danielson, and maybe in Vince's mind, it was going to lead to a match, like Daniel Bryan and Charlie Sheen were going to wrestle, or there was supposed to be more Charlie Sheen involvement. But as soon as his show Anger Management came out and was an instant hit,
it was, yeah.
He was like, okay, I'm not doing any more wrestling or promoting, or just everybody leave me alone. Because I think it went to like, didn't they get like an immediate like 100 episode order or something?
It was it was a weird time because Gethard's show got the same thing, like a 10 with a 90 pickup. so wild.
And it was on FX too, right?
Yeah.
So that was pretty big for them.
Jesus Christ. We had over 3 million people watching How We Roll, and they canceled us before the 11th episode even aired. But at any rate.
Yeah.
Such a good show, by the way.
Thank you. The ball was already rolling of like, Daniel Bryan is going to go to Anger Management. He's already teaming up with Kane. Maybe I don't think they were a team. Were they a team yet? Or maybe that's how that led to them being a team. I don't remember how they both got into Anger Management, but at any rate. So I wrote the first drafts of all of those. And specifically, like I spent like a good week researching every conceivable moment in Kane's career, because I wanted to do like that George Costanza like monologue of all the awful things that ever happened to Kane. And I even I went to the magazine people had a copy of like, they did a novelization of Kane's life story. I even like leafed through that. I didn't sit down and read it, but I was just like kind of thumbing through it and stuff. But the one thing I was scouring YouTube to find, and I finally found it, because I was like, I remember specifically Undertaker cutting a promo sometime in 98 or 99 where he admitted that Undertaker, had set the fire to the funeral home that killed their parents and blamed it, let Kane take the fall. And I finally found, and I was asking everybody, I was like, Ryan Ward or Johnny Russo, like these guys that are just like encyclopedias of, Monday Night Raw. I was like, do you remember that? They're like, that sounds familiar, but I don't know. I finally found the clip, and I was like, yes, because I didn't want there to be any holes.
Yeah.
I wanted to be totally airtight. Kane giving this monologue of the history of his life. And that was the thing that stayed verbatim, and you know how hard it is to like write something, and it goes through everyone. It goes through the senior writers, it goes through the production meeting, it goes through Vince, it goes through even just talent might change something. That's the thing that stayed like as I wrote it on the page, the way that it aired. And I was just like, loved it.
So money.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that naturally is something to be very proud of. That being said, because they inspired the idea for Sasha and Bailey going to see Dr. Shelby, do you regret them?
It's so funny. I was, those segments were, it just wasn't. Well, first of all, I tried naming him Dr. Shellaway, because that was my roommate in college was Jared Shellaway. But that was the only thing that Bryan changed. Because I was like, why'd you change his name? And he's like, that name is Shellaway. He's like, I know Vince would take one look at it and be like, the hell is a Shellaway? And he's like, he would have torn up the entire thing, and we wouldn't have done it at all. Like Vince will focus on that one thing, be like, what is this, guys?
Yeah, you get to a point there where, and by the way, like I was joking about those segments were fine. I'm not one to talk. I'm one of the producers behind Bailey, This Is Your Life, but like like I may have not been like the main person, but I was definitely an accomplice. It like when you kind of get to know him, like he'll fixate on one thing and you have to prove it. And then like you kind of do a proof of it, and like how to play to him too. So it works both ways in an interesting way.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments was, I forget what the idea was, but I pitched it to Michael and he's like, that's good. Yeah. And we're already at TV. It might have even been a pay-per-view, but we were definitely at TV, and it was like something that we need to get Vince's approval of, because we need to have shot it, an hour ago. And I remember Michael goes, yeah, that's good. Now, how do we make Vince think it was his idea?
Of course. Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, it was me, Michael, and whoever the talent was. And we were about to go in Vince's office, and Michael, God bless him, he goes, you know what, Matt? Why don't you hang back? Because if there's too many of us in there, Vince is going to feel like he's getting ganged up on, and he's not going to listen to the idea.
Yeah.
And he was right, because then they got the idea approved. Like, Michael's just there to be like, boss, here's the idea. And then the talent pitches it, does it. Because he's like, I'm there to facilitate the thing. Talent's going to pitch the thing. Vince is going to be wondering, the fuck is he doing here?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think people get like, he listens to talent a lot. Because they're the ones that have to go out and do it. Like,
that was Vince's thing, and I wish more talent realized this, because I got to assume that they are really intimidated by Vince, or they think just Vince loves them, and they think that they'll be fine. Whereas it's like, Vince will always say, if talent has a better idea, I want to hear it. He would always say that.
Yeah.
But I found like a lot of the wrestlers, it's funny, the day that it clicked in my head, I was like, oh my God, wrestlers are more insecure than comedians. Like, I was like, oh, I see what's going on here. Because it's like, in addition to seeking that approval as an entertainer, you also are an athlete. So there's this total like double whammy of insecurity. Plus it's a cosmetic thing on top of it. Like, you got to look good.
Yep.
I was like, woof.
Yeah, it's also too, like, I think I always praise Seth Rollins for being like just getting it and like being like a really good leader. Like, people don't take the totality of the show into it. Like, I remember there were two newer talents coming up from NXT, and they hated their creative. And like they were being incredibly difficult. They went into Vince's office, came out completely different, and like from what they told me, essentially the way he explained it to them was like, listen, you guys are thinking about your segment right here. I'm thinking about that segment. I'm thinking about the entire show. I'm thinking about next week. I'm thinking about Mania. I'm thinking about the next 5 Manias. So you have to think about the bigger picture. And a lot of times talent too gets like stuck in like the one, like what's happening that week. And it really trips them up.
Yeah, that was because when I first got to TV, I got to shadow Ed Koski, who was just
the best.
Oh God, I love Ed so much, and I learned so much from him.
Same.
And particularly, he was so at ease with explaining the thinking of a creative idea to talent. And even when Vince was just like, oh, fine, just do a tag, whatever. When it was just like, it felt like we're in the 4th hour of this production meeting, and Vince finally gets to the point where it's just like, do whatever. Like, Ed was still so plugged into the process and just an amazing storyteller in and of itself,
100%.
I could listen to Ed, talk all night. And that was one of those things where, like, you know, somebody would just be like, well, why are we doing this? And he's like, well, here's the thinking, because it's like everything is a piece, everything is a step along the way, and this is where we're trying to get to with this, you know. Dave was like that too, Kapoor. He was so good at, like, especially there was one time I remember, like, somebody didn't like an idea, and that was the idea we're going with. We had just come out of Vince's office, and the talent was really like, oh God, this is gonna suck. And Dave's like, why, what's up? And he tells him the idea, and Dave's like, yeah, that sucks. And he's like, but here's how we can do it and have it be great, you know. And it's just like, all right, this is what we're doing, here's how to do it to make it exciting and to make the audience interested, and also make talent interested, because it's that thing of, like, if I don't care, the audience isn't going to care, you know.
Yeah, those two people, like, they had like such a massive impact on me. Like you know, Dave, he was such like a leader who looked out for everyone and genuinely cared, and like really preached teamwork and being a team and helping people and growing people. And, you know, he would kind of have this saying of, like, you know, regarding Vince, like, we know our guy. And like, once you get like, and like, just like how you kind of have a checklist of like knowing what he's looking for. Like,
Right.
I remember one night where Eric Rowan was picked to be Seth's live event component. So that's how we did the whole, I guess what became the spider idea, which was originally a rat.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, like, having worked there, I think you can know how excited he was about this.
Yeah.
So we decided to turn, like, you know, an idea came up, and we're there. It's like it's the Raw team under the Heyman era, and Heyman, you know, came up with a really good idea to turn Seth heel, and like he kind of reorganized things in a very creative way. It's like, and Koski too, just come back to him, like you learn so much about like writing from him and like storytelling and all these great things. The fact that he deals with all the job that he has, and he's just such a high quality human being that like doesn't let it impact him, really says a lot about his character. And it's just such an awesome guy.
Yeah. I mean, I can't even imagine, because he's been there so long.
Yeah.
And I can't even begin to imagine the shit he took, you know, when he was new, and for it to not sour him, you know. Just a great guy.
Just an amazing person.
Yeah.
We talked about it a little earlier. Do you have a favorite Michael Hayes story that you feel comfortable telling?
Yeah. I have several. When I first met him, I came out of the elevators with because I was living in New York City at the time, and I would take the Metro North in, and eventually, if I saw him on the train, I would sit with Brian Gewirtz, or once we got off the train, one of the riser assistants would pick us up and drive us to the Titan Tower. And riding up in the elevator with Brian, and the doors open, we walk into the lobby on the 4th floor, and Michael Hayes is standing there, and Brian introduces me. He goes, Michael, this is the new writer who's starting today, Matt McCarthy. And Michael turns and looks at me. He goes, I don't give a fuck. He's like, I'm just kidding. Good to meet you. Welcome aboard. How thick is your skin?
That's great.
And then I feel like it was like my first week. I don't know if it was even my first day. It might have even been later that same day. I don't know. But one of the writer's assistants had gotten a bagel from Michael. Like, he had asked for a breakfast sandwich. And God bless him, Michael bit into it, and a crown came loose. And he starts screaming, God damn it, Zach! What the fuck is this fucking bagel you got me? What is this shit? Oh, fuck. So then he's like, you know, blaming the assistant, like half kidding.
Yeah.
But then he gets on the phone with his dentist, and it's like right in the, like, not the two front teeth, but like the incisors right next to him, if that's what they're called.
Yeah.
And then I noticed as the afternoon is going on, morning's going on, Michael, like we're laughing and talking, but he like keeps covering his mouth. And even when he's laughing, he's trying to like laugh with his mouth closed. And I realize he's embarrassed that he's got like this missing tooth there. And it really, I don't know, it endeared me to him. It just humanized him in a way of just like,
Yeah.
guy's got nothing to be ashamed of, but like he's still a person, and he's still like it just was one of these people that has been larger than life, like on the TV, and then to just have this, see this very human moment, I was just like, damn, you know. So that always stuck with me. That was interesting. But the story that I love is at Mania 28, we did the gimmick where instead of having Sheamus and Bryan Danielson wrestle and do an amazing, and like Bryan Danielson's finally at WrestleMania, and instead of letting him have like a 18 minute classic, we do the Warrior gimmick where just he turns around, bro kick, 1 2 3, loses the IC title or whatever he had, world title, in like seconds flat. And earlier in the day, he had already been doing the yes gimmick, and that came from Vince. Like Vince told Bryan, go out there and celebrate like you just won the Olympics, you just won the World Series, you know, just celebrate like crazy, which led to just Bryan just screaming yes, and then it became what it is today. And so he was already doing the yes thing, and I'm sitting there in the writer's room just watching the show, and suddenly I go, wait a minute. When Bryan loses, shouldn't he start screaming no? And I remember like Michael and Bryan looking at each other like, that, yeah, how did that not occur to anybody? And the day goes by, and later, Mania's still going on. Bryan and Sheamus haven't gone on yet, but Michael comes back to the writer's room. He goes, oh, by the way, Matt, I'm going to pitch your no idea to Vince. But when I walked into the Gorilla, he was screaming at 4 different people for 4 different things. So not today.
Yeah, I don't think like, you know, when you see Michael Hayes, you get an impression. I think like the thing that I always take away from him, and like he is a ball buster, but like definitely does care about teaching and growing, and
absolutely,
like, and like, you know, like he is going to make fun of you like it's nobody's business if you are doing any segment with him, but he's like the producer you want, because Michael's like kind of like the rare breed of like producer who made money and is kind of like choosing to do it. Like he like a lot of times like, oh, like you have somebody who like a lot of the producers like that you don't see like a lot of world champions doing, because like they made millions and millions of dollars. Michael made like a lot of money, and like he's doing it because he cares, and he cares about story, and like his matches really always have a story too. And like when you have, you know, this is like an attraction based business, like a lot of times you're bringing back people who can't work, or like you have to hide flaws, and like Michael's really good about hiding flaws. About, okay, like we need this match with like this retired wrestler coming out of retirement to go like 18 minutes because like the pay-per-view is booked around it. You get like a 5-minute entrance, then you do like a little this, that, or the other, and that's really only 3 minutes of match time, but you have a good time watching it.
Yeah, Michael. Plus, you can talk to him.
Yeah,
there some of the producers, it's like we're not speaking the same language.
Yeah.
He, as larger than life as he is, he's very down to earth, you know. And he's just like, he's so good at his job,
and really gives a shit too. He
really gives a shit about the business, really gives a shit about the talent. Doesn't want anybody to look foolish, doesn't want anybody to, you know, not be given the best material that they could be given. And he's just so good at laying out a match, you know. I would be excited so many times to see, like, if either him or Arn, if they were producing a match with talent I was interested in watching, I'd be like, oh man, I'm gonna go out on the floor and watch this. This is gonna be amazing.
I have a lot of good Michael stories, but I think my scariest one was we were in Long Island. And it was the Brock Ray story where like Brock is on the hunt for Ray. And you gave Ray like the pipe and like he attacked Brock. And then like afterwards, like Brock is like there, angry, losing his mind. And like, you know, Brock will be Brock. He'll do his own thing because, you know, he can. And he also like he's probably the smartest man in wrestling for like looking at how he's negotiated contracts. And also like if you've been around him putting together matches, like he is pretty brilliant at it. So like Brock can feel stuff and like, you know, if there's an extra round, he might improv a little bit. So Michael, it was a slam day, and we were in Long Island. I was producing Firefly Funhouse because like Bray was away from Nick for a little bit because like Nick was on SmackDown before Bray got moved back over. I was doing the Street Profits AJ stuff, and like we were just had like a skeleton crew, even though it was a home show, and I had to play a medic. In the segment, Michael asked me to. I was like, Michael, like I'm so slammed, and like, what do? I have to run into the arena? He's like, you'll be fine. I'm going to send all these referees down. They'll be in front of you with Brock, and like you will be protected. So Michael's screaming at me in Gorilla to go. I jet out. Behind me, no referees. So it's like I'm there with this guy who I am telling Brock Lesnar what not to do. And I doubt Brock knows who I am, even though I've been at the company for a long time. So he probably thinks I'm like a chubby, you know, local, like, you know, from Kurt Hawkins Wrestling School or something.
Yeah.
So I am very fearful that he is like going to put his boot into my chest like I'm Pat Buck. So luckily though, Heyman like ran over because like Heyman was like, you know, leader of Raw, and like he was in character and stuff, but essentially saved my ass. But speaking of Arn though, going back, do you have a favorite Arn story?
I do. Arn is, you know, in A Christmas Story, when the narrator says, you know, some men work with clay, some men work with oils. My father, his art form was obscenities. and he would weave a tapestry of obscenities. Arn Anderson was one of the funniest people I've ever come across in my life. And the things he would say and the way that he would say them were just beyond reproach. There was one time when Josh Matthews was still with WWE as an announcer, and somehow it came up like people are gonna whatever city we were in, what bar they were gonna go to, what nightclub, whatever it was. And Arn threw in his 2 cents. You know, this was a town he was very familiar with, and Josh said, Arn, do you want to come with us? Do you want to come grab a drink with us after the show? And without missing a beat or even giving it a second thought, Arn Anderson goes, Josh, I'd rather suck a turtle's dick on the Johnny Carson show than have a drink with you. I'm like, that's not normal. You know, the average person doesn't just, you know, paint a picture like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's really a Monet with words.
And that's the tamest thing I can think of.
Yeah. Yeah, that gun promo he had with Cody was least surprising promo of the year.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I remember there was one time we were in the production meeting, and some of the most fun was waiting for Vince to show up. And it could be
always the best.
You know, it would just be sometimes hours at a time. especially when Pat Patterson would be there, because Pat wasn't there all the time, but he was like bulletproof with Vince. Pat didn't care. Pat could say what everybody was thinking. And Pat would lose his mind because he was not used to it's like, we've been here for 4 hours, and so one time we're all just sitting around, and Michael's talking, and Arn was actually sitting not in Vince's chair, but in like one of the lead writers. He was just sitting behind that table, that faces the rest of the room. And he's just kind of like spinning back and forth in the chair. And Michael's like explaining this about the business. We got to book backwards. We figure out where we're going, like figure out how to get there, like this, like that. This one needs to learn how to talk. This one needs to learn how to work. All these different things. Arn, am I right? And Arn was not listening to a word Michael said. And Arn just turns around in the chair and just goes, I'm fat. And I fell out of my seat. I'm just like, it was just too perfect.
Yeah.
That's too perfect.
That's great.
Speaking about those producer meetings, like there's a lot of wrestling lingo used in terms that are like only in wrestling.
Oh yeah.
I have one. Do you have one?
Well, I remember Vince once asked Michael what's going to happen in this match. And he wanted a very specific blow by blow rundown. And instead Michael's like, well, they'll go in there, gaga, zabada, gig, 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 ass in over, tea kettle back in, 1, 2, not today. And and I remember Vince, when he finished, Vince looking at him goes, I don't know what any of those words are supposed to mean.
Oh, shit.
I mean, my favorite word was gimmick. I just love that everything is a gimmick. Everything was gimmick.
Yeah. Past the gimmick. If you're just talking about the word
like, do we have any of those purple gimmicks?
Yep.
Is someone's on the phone, like, is the gimmick on? Like, all right, we'll turn up the gimmick so I can hear him talking out of the gimmick. My favorite moment though was by the end of the day, I would be so disheveled.
Same.
I would just like tie askew, sweating, like hair standing up. One time Seamus said to me, he goes, you know what you look like, Matt? You remember when Kane took his mask off for the first time? But then one time Dean Malenko came into the writer's room, and again, probably the funniest guy I've ever met.
Yeah.
And how he was not able to translate it into an on-camera persona is
mind-boggling.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
But my God, the things that he would say under his breath. And I was like, the lowest writer on the totem pole, which meant I was sitting, because it goes, at least when I was there, it was like writer, then producer. And so I would be sitting either in front of or next to either Arn or Dean or both. And everything in my power, you're in the office with Vince. You don't want to cough or sneeze. You also don't want to start just giggling. And those were some of the like biting, like digging my nail into my leg so I wouldn't start laughing at some ridiculous thing Malenko said. So anyway, end of the day, and I'm just looking like I'd been run over by a truck. And Malenko comes in, he's like, what's with you? Why are you so disheveled? Why is your face all red? Are you on gimmick? Like, well, found a new meaning for it now too.
Yeah.
It's so great.
I was really stressed because when I started, I was convinced I was going to be like, if I made 6 to 9 months, that would be a great run.
Right.
Like 89, I think 89 writers came and went during my time there. And I somehow,
he's not exaggerating, kids.
Yeah, it's a high turnover rate. So I was like very stressed because it was like, I grew up at like a massive like mark, and I was like, this is really cool. And like I'm running around, and like you also hear how like treacherous is backstage, which I think is a little overrated. Or I at least had like I liked a lot of the people I worked with, but like I was like
I didn't find I was just talking with somebody and they were like, there was a lot of backstabbing, and I was like, that was not my experience. I think I was just well liked. That was not my experience.
Yeah. I think I think the people that were not liked were sacrificed, but I
think that's what winds up happening is people like
most jobs.
I don't think it was like backstabbing. It was mostly like, it's like, did you hear what his pitch was? Yeah, it sucked.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's like, other jobs would be like that, but like Meltzer isn't covering like the employee pool at Kinko's.
Basically.
Yeah. But like to your point about like being disheveled, it was like my probably like second week on the road. We were in San Diego and I went to go talk to us to Okada about something. And like Victor from the Ascension was there and he just looked at me and was like, at least you're getting it early. Like had me on the back and walked away. Like he saw how like sweaty I was, or like my shirt was half tucked.
Oh my god!
But going back to my favorite wrestling term to hear in a production meeting is, if you want to play fuck, let's play fuck. Because like you just know,
wow,
that is like the throwdown of throwdowns.
Wow, yeah. I remember also hearing the, we're the ones fucking this dog. You're just holding the head.
So
that was like that would always be said behind the back of like whoever was in charge. That was in reference to, you sign the checks, but we're the ones doing the work.
So that's I that only circulated that I knew of one time at NXT, when I was at NXT, where I won't say who it was, but a main roster producer came down with how they have different producers.
Yeah, sure.
So it's like, somebody new was learning, and it was like the main event of NXT, and like somebody was supposed to send like security guards, and he's about to, and like the person yelled that out, and I was in Gorilla. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, the other one I heard, probably the one I heard the most, was wish in one hand, shit in the other, see which gets done first. It's like, God, I wish Christian wasn't hurt. Well, shit in one hand, wish in the other.
Yeah. They're really one man's phrases.
Right.
Did you hear about, so like we're recording this right after Raw on Monday. I think we're releasing this day after or 2 days after, but did you hear about Sasha and Naomi tonight?
Did they break up?
They walked out of Raw.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Tonight.
WWE released a statement.
Is this like minutes ago?
This was released during Raw, I believe.
Okay. Because Graves said something on Raw too. It was kind of awkward.
Yeah, so this was released at 10:30 Eastern.
Okay. That's
Sean
pretty
Ross,
recent.
Yeah, and Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful had it. WWE's statement on Sasha Banks and Naomi. When Sasha Banks and Naomi arrived at the arena this afternoon, they were informed of their participation in the main event of tonight's Monday Night Raw. During the broadcast, they walked into WWE Head of Talent Relations John Laurinaitis' office with their suitcases in hand, placed their tag team championship belts on his desk, and walked out. They claimed they weren't respected enough as tag team champions. Jesus. And even though they had 8 hours to rehearse and construct their match, they claimed that they were uncomfortable in the ring with two of their opponents, even though they had matches with those individuals in the past with no consequences. Monday Night Raw is a scripted live TV show whose characters are expected to perform the requirements of their contract. We regret we were unable to deliver as advertised tonight's main event.
Damn.
Well, how about that, wrestling?
I feel like this happened before, right? With Bailey and Sasha, or I don't know if that was.
I wonder.
Was that a gimmick?
Who's the common denominator in both of those equations?
Yeah,
hell of a thing.
E equals MC square. It's
that's a gimmick.
Yeah, maybe it's time to let's call back. Yeah, maybe they should stop putting the tag titles on Sasha.
If you're not happy with your push here at the E, there are plenty of other options out. There's a wonderful program happening on the Turner Network. I'm sure they'd love to have you.
Have you ever been in a situation like that where
there you go?
talents walked out like that?
I remember Punk being handed a promo about The Rock and him refusing to. He's like, so now I gotta fucking put over The Rock? Fuck that. I remember that happening. I don't recall anyone walking out per se. But I know that there has to be something I'm not thinking of. I mean, I remember, AW getting himself fired for making the Kobe Bryant joke on the headset. And I was dealing with those. I was working with those guys most weeks, and I even gave the primetime players their name. But fuck, man, when every week I would have to go up and tell them that the segment was cut. I mean, I'm not saying he was trying to get fired. What I'm saying is that guy was at the end of his rope, and I could see the mentality, at least, of, I got to just take my shot, and there must have been this is pure speculation, but there must have been a feeling of, I don't give a crap anymore.
Maybe the question is, do you remember one of the more awkward times you had telling talent they're creative?
I remember telling Santino Marella, Zack Ryder, and Jamie Noble, who was producing the match. I don't remember who they were wrestling, but for whatever reason, Vince wanted Santino to do the Cobra like at the beginning of the match. And when I told them this, like, first of all, I told them the time, like how much time they had for the segment. And like Jamie Noble, God bless him, he's just like, does that include entrances? And I was like, yeah, that's from the moment it starts to, God damn. Like, also the other big note was they want a Cobra at the beginning of the match. She's like, Cobra's the finish. So I'm like, well, I don't know. He's like, well, who can we talk to? And I was like, go into the writer's room, and Ed, this would have been Raw, because Ed is in there writing SmackDown. And I walk in the room, and like we've been saying before, Ed's the best. But there's nothing but ball breaking going on all the time. And I walk in the writer's room, and I go, hey, Ed. He goes, fuck off. And I go, Ed, will you explain to Jamie and Santino what the Cobra at the beginning of the match is going to be? And like he never even told me to fuck off. He just turns around and goes, yeah, like, he's like, Ed, that's supposed to be the finish of the match. And Ed's just like, yeah, but can he do like, it's almost like a mini Cobra. It's just like a little baby Cobra happens at the beginning. Like he's like, all right, yeah, I can see that. But the other one that was just the worst was Randy Orton. I mean, this was at the time when he was doing the punt kick, and the feeling was, if he does it as a shoot, he's kicking someone full blast in the head, and we can't do that. If he works it, it looks awful, and we can't do that. So now Randy doesn't get to do his punt kick at all. And for months after this, anytime you brought any creative to the Apex Predator, he would look at it and go, so we can do this, but I can't do my punt kick? Like, there was one time too where I don't remember who he was feuding with, but his dad was there. Bob Orton Jr. was involved. He was at TVs. I think he was feuding with Kane. And Kane said something about, I don't know, killing Bob Orton, let's say, or setting him on fire, something like that.
Yeah.
And Randy's reading the copy, and he's like, so he can talk about killing my dad, but I can't use my punt kick. And it was just like, Randy, I remember that time specifically, he's laying on the floor reading the script, and I'm just squatted down. He goes, so he can talk about killing my dad, but I can't use my punt kick. And I looked at him, I go, Randy, I have no answers for you. Okay. This is what we're doing tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very lucky that a lot of people think Randy's really changed since he's over the last couple of years since he met his new wife, and has been really cool. I think when you tell talent, kind of like we we're talking about before with Dave, yeah, this sucks, I don't know what to tell you. They're like, yeah, we get it.
There was something once with Randy, and this was his previous marriage. There was something, and again, I don't know who he was feuding with, but our boss at the time was this guy, Eric Pankowski. And I remember Eric was the one who pitched the idea to Randy that whoever his opponent was going to mention Randy's wife and Randy's daughter. I believe that this was the scenario. Jeez. And Randy blew his stack. It was like, and this happened at, you know how when they're setting up for the show, all the talents around ringside.
Yeah.
This is where this happened. And it was you could hear it down the hall in the writer's room. And Randy's just like, why don't we keep my fucking work and my fucking work, leave my fucking family at my fucking family's house? Something like that. And it was just like, wow, I don't think Randy likes this idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was wild. And then the only other one that was I never wanted to tell Big Show any idea that we had, because he was always, his first reaction would always be just fuck that, I don't want to do that, I want to sit on my bus and play video games. All right, very cool. Well, we have a live television show to do. But everybody else was super cool. I remember, because like you said, when I found out at the bar that they were becoming a tag team, I was so psyched, because those are my guys.
Yeah.
Sheamus I got to work with. Yeah, Sheamus I got to work with a lot, and Claudio, I was paired up with Claudio the moment he came to TV. And the first day at TV, he came up to me and he goes, so-and-so told me to come find you. I need a rugby shirt. And my first thought was, oh, this has got to be a rib. And I'm like, they told you to come find me to get a rugby shirt? And he's like, yeah, they said that I'm going to be a rugby player. Because his original gimmick when he came in, Antonio Cesaro had been kicked out of rugby because he was too violent. Not that he'd been wrestling for Ring of Honor and Chikara for the last 15 years. It was that he was a rugby player who was too violent. And I remember looking at him and thinking, I don't even remember what town we were in. And I'm like, there ain't no way in hell that there's a store selling rugby shirts. And I said to him, I was like, you know what? I don't think it's going to matter. And then he didn't have a rugby shirt, and then no one ever brought it up again. And very quickly, he was not a rugby player at all.
Yeah.
He's the best, by the way. That might be the nicest.
The best. I love Claudio. Yeah.
We became buddies, and during SmackDown, before I left, we developed these, because Vince was really to your point about getting personality out, about somebody can really wrestle, wants entertaining. So we wrote these, we came up with the idea of I think it was called the Tales of Cesaro or something like that. And they were obviously completely made up, all done with a green screen with him wearing wigs and stuff. And before we fleshed out the idea, because Daniel Bryan was or Bryan Danielson, very big supporter of Claudio, and he knew about the idea and loved it. And surprisingly, he has such an amazing sense of humor. He was all in. He was pitching the idea to Vince. So then we had to turn it around, and we wrote out a whole series of them. And I think that they were pretty much signed off on. And then Seth came back to TV, and he got there. It wasn't really the best creative laid out for him. And like we talked about other options, and that's what kind of like led into the Cesaro Mania program, like getting that, trying to get that, Vince to approve that, and move away from the other, just because like we were there, and it's just like, yeah, this doesn't really feel like a fun thing for Seth, and Cesaro made like the best opponent for him because he's like as big of a heel as Seth was at the time, like. Yeah, Cesaro's like the nicest guy in the world.
Yeah.
You think he shows up on AEW?
I hope so.
Yeah,
he might. Yeah, I mean, it's funny there. I thought there was a camera guy who I tweeted about this, and then it got picked up by like a couple of these wrestling Twitter dudes. There's been a camera guy at AEW who's like jacked, looks like Claudio's build, but also the fact that he doesn't just have a COVID mask on. He's wearing an entire
of course
ski mask.
Doing the Dean Ambrose.
This is highly suspicious. Yeah, he's doing the Dean Ambrose thing. So we'll see. I mean, what I would love is for him and Chris Hero to at least have another run as a tag team together.
Yeah, I just don't see him taking the L. Right. And I feel like that's what he's going to do. Right. It's against Joe.
Oh, that he'd be the Joker.
Yeah.
Oh,
my bad. I should have said that.
Could be. I mean, he could be. I don't know. It's funny. It's like, God, I love talking about this because it gets like, I love that feeling of back in the room. Of like the booking philosophy of like, okay, well, what makes the most sense? Like, Claudio's the new guy. Do you want to beat him right away? But like Joe is also new-ish, and he's kind of the fucking, he's a freight train. You don't want to stop his momentum. But then it's like Claudio, does he lose on his first match in? It seems like that's a bad idea, but he's also so beloved. Exactly. Is he going to lose all of his heat by doing that? All right, well, then do we do a fuck finish? Is there some sort of thing? But then it's like, well, that might hurt Joe. Joe doesn't need to fuck around to like beat somebody.
Yeah.
My initial instinct would be like, if you can do a finish where I always mess up how this was, but essentially kind of something based on the WrestleMania 8 finish with Piper and Brett with the sleeper for the clutch. And Cesaro gets like the victory after an awesome match.
It's my favorite Mania match.
It's up there for me too.
Yeah.
And then Joe beats the fuck out of him after to get his heat back. And then you can have through the rest of the tournament Cesaro fighting from underneath.
Because I mean, that is the one thing about AEW is because they have such they give the matches so much time, and they give them an opportunity to really tell a story that, as good as the talent, as great as the talent in WWE is, there's a specific kind of match that Vince McMahon wants. And there are specific ways he wants a match to be told in the ring. And the booking philosophy is the same, but the way that the match comes across on Dynamite, most of the time, you do get to that, finish where somebody's up and somebody's down, but everybody looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the attempt on Raw. But when it's a 3-minute match and then somebody's distracted for the third time tonight, that somebody's standing on the apron and then they fucking get beaten by a schoolboy, it's like, oh my God, how many times have I seen this? As opposed to 14 minutes of solid back and forth action where I really feel like my guy might win this thing. He doesn't, but he's all the better for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Well, Tony Khan says he works all weekend. Did you see that?
No, what did he say?
Some quote in Forbes magazine. He doesn't get how Vince comes in and he rips up the script and he rewrites it before Monday. He works all weekend.
Before Monday. Try
hours before the show starts.
Try hours before the show starts.
All right, seconds, damn it.
I there were times when the show was starting and it was like, what's happening? Like, what is happening tonight? We've got the first two segments, so we're okay until 8:40.
Yeah.
I once asked Michael that very question. I was like, because it's like you're sitting all day.
Yeah.
You're sitting all afternoon waiting for Vince to show up for the production meeting. And then you run through the show and he goes, "The fuck is this?" It's like, "Oh, this, sir? This is the script you approved on Thursday night." And the producers all had a producer's call and they approved it as well. Now suddenly we're here, everybody's hearing it for the first time and tearing it apart and blaming the writers, and then that's the story that goes out to the internet.
Yeah.
I asked Michael, I was like, why do you suppose Vince, changes everything at the last minute every single week? Because that's the other funny thing. Whenever Meltzer and Alvarez are like, "Oh, I heard they threw out the script this week." And I'm like, well, how did this particular week hit, the sheets? It's like that.
Yeah.
Standard. And Michael was like, "I think he just thrives on that pressure." And I'm not one of those guys. I enjoy knowing what's going to happen and thinking about what's going to happen and talking it through. I mean, at a certain point, don't get me wrong, I love the pencils down moment of, okay, this is the idea and now we're moving forward. And that's something that you really only get with a live television show that, there's no reruns every single week, or like a late night show where it's just like, the show's about to air. Like we're done. Like we did the best that we could in the time we had. But this whole trying to write your act before you're about to go on stage is I've never had a good experience doing that.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And I get that it's, he wants people to I think he feels to an extent you see people's best selves under pressure. Whether that's whether that's true or not, it's another thing. What's your we don't want to keep you too much longer.
But before you move on, but that's when mistakes get made.
Yeah, 100%.
Because there's not enough. Because like I said, when I wrote that Kane monologue, I spent a week, vetting it, with myself, with the footage, and going through everything just to make sure that it was airtight. And it's one of the best things I've ever written. The Miz and Maurice doing the parody of Bellas. That's probably my favorite thing I ever wrote, because I spent so much time writing and rewriting. It's like writing is editing, comedy is editing, and just getting it to, because it's all the times that I was at TV and Hunter's like, "You think this is funny? This isn't funny. Go write it again. Oh, by the way, make it funny." I'm like, this is not an environment that I thrive in. Maybe there are writers that do. I'm not one of them. Okay. I like to enjoy myself and feel like I'm having fun. And I have a certain freedom that just, the ideas and the jokes just come when I have a good time. Very rarely when I'm pissed off am I making my best jokes. I might come across funny because I'm angry. I got big laughs in the back, when I would be pissed off and going on a rant. But
Same.
I mean, as far as right. As far as doing something creative and storytelling, it's just not for me. But that's exactly why all of a sudden the show's going and you're like, fuck, we forgot about this. Shit. Did you see what they were saying on Twitter? They're like, yeah, we completely contradicted ourselves. And this is a team of dozens of people and we've gone through all the drafts, and it's because when things change, that's when things fall through the cracks, and it hurts the whole product.
I forget who said it, and maybe this is Michael because it's really smart. But if if the production meetings were just done the night before, and like obviously then you're like wading into territory of like those probably going very late, but like kind of like how NXT would do it under the Bel Castro era, which was like really smart. Like you have the production meeting the night before, you go through the whole thing, then you have like a brief catch up the morning of, but pretty much everything's decided the night before and changes are made night before. So when you get there, talent, writers, producers, everybody has their marching orders.
Right. Like when I would be asked to perform in a sketch on Conan, right? Like I would show up. This is my favorite feeling in the world. As soon as I would walk in the green room, whoever the first person I would see, stage manager, costume person, whoever it was, and they would say to me, "Do you know what you're doing today?" And I would say, "No." And that was like a thrill of what's going to happen today. You know, the writers all knew what was happening. They had already pitched their ideas. And then whatever gets approved for rehearsal are the things they would run through at rehearsal. And we rehearse a couple of things, and then it's the rehearsal with Conan and Andy. And then that's when Conan would, in real time, approve what's going to be on the show and what isn't. Or would be like, I see what you were going for. This is what needs to change so it makes more sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's all this time of rewriting, getting everything the way it's supposed to be, and then do the show, and that's that. And that was an environment of like, this thing is a well-oiled machine, you know, and people have time. Like people are under the clock, you know, especially if we're doing a pre-tape. It's like the amount of times I heard the writer who's producing this, you know, pre-tape say to the camera person, like, you know, I appreciate you. I appreciate your craft. And I know that all the other cameramen in the city are going to watch this and see everything that you've done wrong. But we need this to be done. You know, we there's no more time to light this thing the way that you need it to be done. We just need it to be done.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine what that show would be if like literally the band is playing, the warm-up comic is out there, and Conan's screaming at the writers and screaming at the talent, just being like, God, what is this shit? Tear it up. You know, it's just
Yeah.
Yeah, all that makes sense. I guess, like, you know, is there anything that like really excites you still as a wrestling fan in a big way? Because like you've seen how the sausage is made, but like I don't think, like, you know, when people think like WWE is just like Hollywood comedy writers, like, you know, you're stuck in Connecticut, which isn't like, you're either taking a pain in the ass commute like you and I did separately from the city there, or you're living there. And like, you know, God, you know, Connecticut's great, but like it's not LA and it's not New York City. These hours are really long. Like if you, and the pay is not entertainment industry standards. So I feel if you're there, you really have to love it. So I guess just like like whether it's like watching things from the past or anything going on currently, is there anything like that gets you really excited still as a fan?
all of it. I mean, I just love pro wrestling, and I tell you, I was more interested in it having been backstage, you know, because finally the last piece fell into place. I was like, oh, everything makes sense now. You know, I understand why certain storylines suddenly disappear, or why a segment wasn't as funny as it was supposed to be, or why this person was getting really popular and suddenly they lost their push. It was just like all those things finally made sense because I understood. Because it's also unfair to just say, well, it's Vince and Vince is crazy. There are so many factors happening.
Yeah, 100%.
And to be able to appreciate that made me a bigger fan of pro wrestling. And it made me appreciate what the writers do, what the producers do, and bottom line, what the wrestlers do in the ring. And like seeing guys come back, and I was there the night like Trent Barretta like ripped his bicep after having an amazing match with Tyson Kidd, you know. And Trent to this day is still one of my favorite wrestlers.
Yeah, he's back and better than ever.
I know. It's just the thing that just excites me now about wrestling is seeing something that I love getting a whole new coat of paint. Seeing, like, my favorite angle in wrestling is when the babyface comes back after being barred from the building under a mask. You know, loser leaves town. Suddenly the Midnight Rider's there. Suddenly Giant Machine is there. Suddenly Mr. America's there. And I keep meaning to ask, who came up with Elias's younger brother, Ezekiel? Because it is truly next level inspired of that angle in a way that I never even would have considered before.
Yeah.
And just to and for all people, that it's Kevin Owens is the one who's blowing his
Yes.
staff.
Yep.
Who's the one saying, oh, am I the one taking crazy pills? What is happening here? And then even further, somebody on Twitter, God bless him, had the pitch of bringing back Damian Sandow. And
yes, I saw that. Yeah.
And have Aaron come in as Elias.
That would be amazing.
Which is so perfect on every level, beyond the fact that the guy just has a great beard. That's the gimmick he was doing when he left, doing the stunt double thing.
Yeah.
And Sandow, talk about a guy that was given material that probably on the first sniff was like, God, why am I doing this? And made it just, you know, a shining star in the sky. I mean, Miz's stunt double on paper is the worst idea I've ever heard. And then Sandow doing it, it was like, this is the next phase of his career. This is, I mean, I that guy's got a great mind for the business as well too. But
you got to Truth as Dolph's stunt double. That was just also amazing too.
I mean, it's just that's what people often are like, you know, Matt, like, explain to me why you love pro wrestling. And I'm like, it's everything at once. It's every form of art and pop culture and sport at once. And when it boils down to it, it's the pursuit of justice. It's good versus evil. You know, it's the good guy fighting the bad guy. It's the little guy fighting the big guy. And when it's done well, there's just nothing better. I wish I had it in front of me. My friend is an editor, and he cut together a piece of that Bryan Danielson press conference he did after he debuted at AEW. And Bryan says something to the effect of like, excellent pro wrestling. If you show excellent pro wrestling to anyone, they will love it. Because excellent pro wrestling is fucking awesome. And he cut it together with just all these moments of like great, what we think of when we, like, the hair stands up on our arms and we think about pro wrestling and the majesty of sports and the absurdity of like this larger than life thing, these real life superheroes and cartoons and madmen showered in blood and covered in, you know, feathers from pillows. I mean, it's just, you know, men literally being tarred and feathered on television.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, there's just nothing better. And the thing that every once in a while I will watch and I will cry every single time I watch it is on Botchamania. I think number 300 or 400, whichever one. It came out during the pandemic, and he had recut. I wish I could give credit to the original YouTube. Somebody set wrestling clips to Bohemian Rhapsody, and then Matthew updated it, and, you know, some more HD clips and some better, more relevant clips.
Yeah.
And it goes through that whole song, and it's just this love letter, this Valentine to pro wrestling. And then it ends with these moments of, you know, Bailey and Sasha hugging, and you know, Daniel Bryan hugging that kid, the Make-A-Wish kid at ringside, and like you know, Mick Foley holding up the belt when he first won it, I think in Worcester, and like that's the last image of it. It's just like, it just slays me.
Yeah,
I just love it. There's just nothing I love.
It's beautiful. It's pro wrestling.
Yeah.
Matt, it's been a pleasure. Give the people what they want. How can they find you?
They can follow me on all forms of social media at McCarthy Redhead. I'm most active on TikTok and Instagram.
Nice.
And if you want to listen to me talk about wrestling, I do it every single week on the We Watch Wrestling podcast. Wednesdays, new issues drop. Vegas, we're doing a free live show, Double or Nothing weekend.
Nice.
Everybody is invited. It's absolutely free. It's going to be at the Nerd. A lot of cool wrestling related events are happening there the whole weekend, but our show is going to be 3 p.m. Saturday, May 28th at the Nerd. Go to We Watch Wrestling podcasts. Our descriptions of our shows have all the information that you need. And yeah, you know, I got some stand-up albums wherever you listen to digital music. My most recent one, Sober Dad, has my full 10-minute pro wrestling fan manifesto that I think it's required listening for all wrestling fans.
There you go.
So yeah, that's what I'm doing now. And this Thursday, everybody watch the series finale of How We Roll. Back-to-back episodes, and unfortunately the series finale, the season finale, which now turns out to be the series finale, legitimately is probably the best show that we did. And the fact that they only ordered 11 episodes, I was like, this is half a season. And we finally started hitting our stride, and that was the show where I was like, oh, I completely understand how to play this character now. So bittersweet to say the least, but
Yeah.
it'd be awesome if everybody tuned in and suddenly it was the biggest ratings we ever got, and CBS was like, oh crap, why'd we cancel this?
This is good shit.
Oh God, such good shit. Sophisticated.
Yeah, Matt, we appreciate it. Chris, you got anything to say?
No, sir. Bid on AEW if you live in Los Angeles.
Yes.
Just try to donate if you can to Leukemia Society.
The description is in the link. Please donate if you can. Again, thank you so much, Matt. Chris, you the man. Peace.